So it shouldn't really be that much of a surprise that Guilty Gear is a really selfish and high-power game where characters, when they're winning, feel unstoppable, and when they're losing, they feel really bad. That being said, most characters in this game do have pretty defined strengths and weaknesses, so in this video, I'm going to go over a weakness for every top tier, definition a little generous, and do my best to make it not health or damage related, because that's not a thing you can actually interact with, and it's a pretty boring answer. I'm going to be using top tier pretty generously here. Go over these characters in this video, and no, I'm not going to argue with you. I'll probably change my mind and say like Elfil or Anji or Slayer or something like that count as part of this list a month or two from now, but like, I don't know, who cares, bro?
Leo Whitefang.
Leo's definitely one of the most well-rounded characters in the game. You know, he's got flash kick, he's got a good dash, got some nice buttons, he's got a fireball, he's got good offense, blah, 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 right? But I'd say his one really big problem is fighting K normals. His only disjoints are 2S, 6P, and his guard point follow-up, a move which isn't really useful versus a lot of the cast because they could just press moves like this, right? And just press lows. So he kind of just to throw himself at you and guess on your timing a lot. And since these K normals are so fast on whiff, it's really hard for him to react and check your next action. So, for example, the way you'd fight Leo with a character like Johnny with really good K buttons would be like... Like, if I see him press a K button, right, I can't react and stuff the next one, really. Especially 5Ks. He hates 5Ks more than 2Ks because a lot of 5Ks, like Johnny's, will end up beating his, right? Or end up being his 2K, rather, because his 5K is non-standard, right? But I'm basically just blindly guessing on the timing here. Right? And if I am hitting him out of something or punishing something, it's because I am seeing a K button and then hitting the recovery of the next K button. So I'm basically seeing him whiff and then guessing on the next whiff. Or it's you just have to send yourself at it. So not that he is, you know, he has literally nothing against this. But for example, he can use like 2S and 2K better against 2Ks and 5Ks. But this is definitely the thing that he struggles the most with. Not every character can do this type of thing. Like Soul has way smaller K buttons, for example, and stuff. But if you can, this is probably how you should be fighting Leo.
Goldlewis Dickinson.
So for Goldlewis, people should know I hate this character, and he does not have as many weaknesses as he should, but I'm going to do my best to come up with a couple of them here. First off is he has heavy backdash, which means that it's 6 invul, 22 total. And frame data wise, it's the best out of heavy backdashes, but it's still like visible in that like his backdash, if you see it, you can do something before he can. As opposed to Bridget's, which I call her backdash plus, because by the time you see it, she's already doing something, right? On top of it being further than his. So I would classify heavy backdash as a weakness. There's some matchups like Elfelt where it's more useful, but generally I would say it's bad. He is also just like generally like slow, right? He has really broken anti-zoning tools, like this move, you know, got nerfed is really broken. This move needs no introduction, etc., right? But if he literally just needs to get from point A to point B, he is pretty slow. The most interesting one is he has some stuff on defense. So even though his 2P is like really, really broken, and it's like the best anti-air in the game or whatever, and his 5K is really broken, and his 2K is really far, it leaves him kind of lacking a decent like option that's faster than 7 frames to mash on defense that like is kind of a catch-all. By that, I mean like the best example I can come up with is when Bridget does like this to you. There you go, right? So if she's like literally in your face, the 2P will hit, right? But if she's any further, like even I think like here, yeah, he gets hit. If you're at that spacing and he tries 5K, like a lot of spacings, like let's say even like here, yeah, right? So 5K is usually the answer to this type of stuff, but 5K has its own issues, as opposed to just a button he can mash, because it's 10, right? So like Bridget could do like, you could do something like that, right? Or whatever, right? There's like stuff that characters can do to work around his 5K. It's not like a literal like perfect answer. And then like I said, if she's close enough, it just wins. And then if he presses 2K, it'll trade, right? Obviously, there are workarounds to this, and Goldlewis players probably make it sound worse than it is, but it is actually pretty annoying for him to deal with all this stuff. Leo actually does have a similar problem, before I forget, because his jab whiffs on moves like Bridget's 2K, even though it's not necessarily a typical low profile move. And his 2P is really small, and his 2K is 7, so it's the same thing of like, oh, he has to mash for one to trade, but Leo has a flash kick, and he doesn't have heavy backdash, so... anyway, yeah, that's me doing my best to come up with weakness for Goldlewis. You're welcome.
Johnny.
So, for Johnny, they have definitely tried to patch out a lot of his weaknesses and succeeded somewhat. Like, for example, It was pretty annoying for him to deal with DP when this string had a gap, but they sped up his dash. It was possible to check his dash before they buffed his dash. Technically, a weakness is that he is technically weak to low profile, but it's too character specific. I don't want to get into it. Like, oh, just have a low profile 2K is kind of a boring answer, so I'm not going to say that. He also, yeah, he can just instant overhead you from way further because he has dash jump now, right? Before, like, from here, he couldn't really... Or from, like, let's say here, yeah. Like, if you did Misfinder Pop from here, he couldn't really do much to you, but now he just does this, right? So, and also just, he has a dash jump for, like, neutral purposes, right? So they did patch out a lot of his weaknesses. Yes, this character's broken, blah, blah, blah. But his step dash still does have a couple disadvantages. Let's start with offense, I guess. So if you FD his close slash, because he has no dash, he's here, right? Which means it takes him forever to walk into throw range against you, right? So unless he just commits to dash cancel, which is punishable, right? This is a really big gap. This is like, this is like a 16 frame gap, I'm pretty sure, right? So like, to demonstrate that's a pretty big gap, let's make Sin mash like 2S, I don't know, right? Yeah, like my throw isn't even gonna counter it, right? So yeah, it's a decently big gap, right? He can't really threaten throw that well after close slash if you just FD it. Obviously, that's why he has easy access to guard crush, blah, 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 right? I'm going to try and not complain too hard about him. The other two really big losses is that he can't do dash block, right? So, like, even if it's just something as simple as, like, this, right? He just gets hit here, right? Instead of being able to block it. And he also loses dash button, right? So, obviously, his far slash is really big, and his 5k is really big, and his buttons are really broken to compensate for this. And he also can just have dash and misfinder, right? But there are situations where if you're, like, here and you want to, like, not commit to far slash, right? Because maybe it'll whiff or something. And you just want to do dash 5k. Or, like, dash block check, and then, you know, like, I don't know. It leaves his kind of inflexible in those types of waves, and it makes all the stuff really rigid. And, like, good thing his buttons are broken, so he'll be fine. But it definitely comes up in, like, neutral situations. It comes up on, like, defense if you're just, like, getting boxed in the corner. And then also it comes up versus stuff like, you know, like zoning stuff, like steady aim and stuff like that, right? Especially zoning where it's worse to jump, obviously, right? Because he can have dash jump. And his dash jump is also pretty good because his dash is good, right? But, yeah, specifically, losing dash block and dash button is kind of rough. Obviously, he has workarounds, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it is something. Alright, so for Sin, this one is going to be a little annoying, sorry. But I don't want to say, oh, just have a DP against him, because his offense is worse if you have a DP, obviously, right? And I'm not going to say, oh, just pick a character where their far slash beats Elk, like this. Right? Because that's also pretty boring. I'm going to say he is weak without his resource. I'm sorry. That's the best I got. This is actually an unfuzzyable strike throw. You can't fuzzy jump this, you can't backdash it. If a heavy backdashes this, get an OS. It is really strong, but this takes a while to come back. There you go. It just started coming back, right? Wow. This is actually taking a decent amount of time, right? And also, he is not able to walk out of throw. Right? So, that means that... Oh, okay. To beat throw, he has overhead, which beats throw, right? Except he doesn't get a combo off overhead even on counter hit here, right? So, right, he does have to do a thing here to beat your throw, which is not super trivial, right? And then, even if he does throw you, Sin actually has, I believe, the fastest throw animation in the game. And now we're going to wait here and see how long it takes for this stuff to come back, right? And his H buttons are nice for some reasons, but also, like, you can just press on this, right? So he doesn't really have the ability to do, like, close slash, far slash 5H, close slash 2S, 2H, like, whatever, right? Like, he doesn't really have, like, the best button gatlings from his S buttons on block in order to stall for his resource better. And the time it takes actually does matter, right? The thing is, he can offset this really easily, like, even if he has none of this, right? He just does this, or he does, like, whatever, right? So... And then if he has any meter, he does, you know, Tyrant Barrel to break instead of needing to spend this on combos. So he can cycle his resources well, but there are definitely times where you can just catch him without stamina if he, like, makes you block, and then you, even if you take the throw, or mainly if you just don't get hit. Like, I think taking the throw isn't as bad versus him as you think. So I would RPS between taking the throw in his +6, teching the throw, which you can't walk out of, And then very occasionally, like, fuzzy mashing if he tries to shimmy you. Yeah, I know this one is kind of annoying to hear, but, you know, that's how they design this character, as annoying as it is.
May.
So, May is another character that's kind of ridiculously well-rounded. Couple things. Number one, a lot of her character depends on this RPS. So if a character is really good in Dolphin RPS, like let's say Faust or Bridget or Nago, it can be kind of annoying for her, right? That's one. Number two is that her S buttons don't convert meterlessly without Wild Assault, but she also can just do this, right? And this does kind of factor into like when she's running offense on you. Like if she does like, sure, right? If you get frame trapped by this, she can't really convert it on normal hit that easily, which matters, right? Etc., right? So, like, you know, it does come up, but it matters a lot less with Wild Assault. Sorry.
Chipp Zana.
Alright. For Chipp, I yield. This is the cop-out. The best I could do is, like, oh, Rekka is minus on normal hit, so, like, oh, if they press a standing move and you frame trap them, like, oh no, he doesn't get a, you know, but he also, like, that type of thing is just remedy. Nago's the worst character to do this for. Let me make him 6p reversal, I guess. So, like, oh no, even if he frame traps your 6p on Rekka, right? Even, like, this is still minus, right? This is minus on hit. But this is remedied by just doing this type of thing, right? Like, you know, I don't know how to play Chipp, but he kills you off that, trust me, bro. So that type of weakness can just be remedied by the rope. He also can just, like, do this and not get on the rope, and then, like, I don't know. So, have fun, guys. And then, also, he is like, oh no, low-profile 2Ks are annoying for him, but that's character-specific, so that's kind of also a cop-out. So, I do have to just say, oh, he has a low HP. This character has no weaknesses. Chipp is broken. Thank you for coming to TED Talk.
Nagori Yuki.
Alright, so for Nago, he does have some of the Goldlewis stuff in that he has heavy backdash, right? But he has Fukir back, so it's not as bad. And then he has some of the Johnny stuff because he doesn't have a forward dash, so he has Fukir forward, which is really good, and he has this move, which is broken. And he has this move, which is broken. He has this move, which is broken. Like that, or whatever, right? But he doesn't have a forward dash. There are situations where this is genuinely annoying for him. So yeah, I basically would just combine some of the Goldlewis section, some of the Johnny section for Nago.
Potemkin.
Alright, so for the current biggest villain, I'd say, Potemkin. Same thing about the backdash, he has heavy backdash, except he has backbreaker fist, Lamau. Same thing about the forward dash, except he has this, Lamau. He also has this, which is armored. But specifically for mid-range outside of this, it is somewhat annoying because, like, this button and this button are kind of slow. This is kind of committal, but Hammerfall Break is kind of broken. So, I don't know. His 5P whips on crouchers. Or, it doesn't, like, always whip on crouchers, but, like, you just do this, right? Like, if Johnny were sitting here doing nothing, this would hit, right? Right? So, like, if Johnny's in this range, and he's standing, this would hit. But because he's pressing 2K here, there you go, it's whiffing, right? So, his 5P does lose to that. His K buttons actually are both whiff punishable. They're both over 30 total. So, you can see these moves and, you know, make him whiff. But all of this is basically ignored by him having this being armored. This is also armored during the recovery, by the way. Cool. And then this is also really broken. But yeah, like, ideal range versus pot, I'd say, is you probably fight him, like, here, right? We're gonna have to do something like, you know, that, except way faster if you're not bad like me, right? Rather than just being able to send, like, just raw, like, Kara PB as a mid-range option. Because then you're just kind of playing his game. And his S button... or his S buttons, just his far slash and like his sweep and then like his 5H are really big, but they are like stuffable, I guess. His sweep, actually, you can kind of accidentally 6p him on the head, and then these buttons lose to 6p pretty hard. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm giving you bad advice, but this character's broken, you know. They patched out so many weaknesses that he has. So, do your best. I guess one thing I will say is that his close slash is 4 active, so it is possible to backdash it. Like, it is possible for every character in the game to just backdash this move like that, right? Because it's only 4 active. There's stuff he can do. Let's just hope pop players don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Good luck, guys.
Chaos.
Alright, so Chaos is kind of another annoying one, because the boring answer is, oh, he's squishy and has no reversal. Or stuff like that, right? Like I said, I'm trying not to do that. So, let's go over some other stuff. A lot of stuff on his offense, such as, like, 5D and roll and stuff like that, loses to mashing throw. And then also his stuff is just like executionally annoying to do, so throw is good in that sense too. So it is genuinely a good idea to mash back throw against him sometimes. It is kind of annoying for him to check for like DP or yeah, like DPs and not like post flash reversals where he can put the gun away. Plus like backdash and stuff when he has the gun out because he can't block with the gun out, right? And then for matchups where characters can actually get into mid range consistently and like check him backdashing and can like, you know, check him for doing this type of stuff in mid range, right? Then his buttons start to become a little flawed. In a lot of matchups, it just feels like his buttons are really broken, and this is like, oh, you can't do anything, blah, 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 right? But the reason that's the case is because he's zoning your character, and most of his buttons, when you really think about it, are more of counter pokes than pokes, other than 6S, and then this button is flawed in other ways, blah, 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 right? And he isn't super built to run at you unless he's shooting you, right? Especially because he's also not super fast, and then most of his buttons, other than like far slash and 6S, don't have the best like dash momentum on them or whatever, right? So yeah, he's not super built to run at you, and he doesn't have to in most matchups. But in some matchups in mid-range, like he does have to threaten it, like Johnny or Ram or May. And in those matchups, he is pretty bad at it, right? And he can lose button to button kind of hard in those matchups. But like I said, you kind of have to cop out for this one and make it like matchup specific and all that. Slash just mash throw forehead, because this character is designed in a way where it's like, oh, he does no damage, he builds you so much burst. Like, all right, dude, what do I do about that? Anyway, I'm trying not to complain too much. Yeah, chaos. There you go.
Ramlethal Valentine.
Alright, so this one for Ram, some of it is a little bit of reach, some of it is not. It is all kind of character specific because she is like stupid well-rounded in a lot of ways. Let's get into it. So the first thing is, because they changed the frame data on Rekka, the cancel for K buttons are actually weaker. So obviously at ranges where this whiffs, which they crap out all the time, right? This is a trade, right? On 5k, and then on 2k, it just loses, right? And then when she does this, on a lot of characters with smaller K buttons, they actually can't do anything about this because their 2k will whiff. But for characters with bigger 2ks, like Leo, Johnny, you know, and then like the goats like Chaos, etc., right? Like, she actually does have a hard time discouraging this when she's not near the corner for 6H to wall bounce. Because 5k Rekka now will actually lose to this, right? Which is what her previous option was for that. So that's weakness number 1. Weakness number 2 is, now that they nerfed Daro on normal hit K buttons, she does not get any combos. So there are a lot of moves, like, I'll showcase them. So, because they nerfed 2k Daro, on moves like Nagiha, Ram actually can't get a combo unless 2k 6p is in range. Which, they buffed her 6p. It is in range more often than you think, but, you know, it's not always in range. Other moves like this are... And Leo does Erst. She's just +1 on hit. When Ida does S-Stroke. This is a little bit of a cop-out because these weaknesses aren't necessarily exploitable versus every character. For example, versus Soul, if you're here, maybe his 2k will win. But at a lot of spacings, you know, he can't really do much about this, right? And Soul isn't going to have moves that are like -6 or whatever for that to actually matter, the 2k thing. And also, Soul is often getting counter hit by K buttons, and that just looks like this. Or if she is faster, you know, she could still just do Daro and then do whatever she wants after, right? So, sorry, she's still ridiculously well-rounded. This weakness isn't like necessarily exploitable for everyone, but this is the best I got.
Soul Badguy.
Alright, so sort of similar to Leo, Soul does have Disjoint 2S, but he doesn't have a far slash, or a normal far slash. He doesn't have a normal 5k, and then his 2k, unlike Leo, is small, and unlike Leo, he's also slow. Which means he struggles with the same K button stuff that Leo does, so refer to that segment, right? And he also is not really good at catching backdash. In that, like, you can even try stuff like this, and he'll, like, recover in time, or, like, he'll whiff and you get punished, stuff like that. And he's also even worse at it because they nerfed this, so he doesn't get a combo if he hits you with that anymore. So, yeah, it's slamming K buttons or backdash. That's what you do against him. Otherwise, I mean, he's on the box, he's well-rounded. Fighting him at this range is pretty effective, where he has to commit to doing 10 frame options against you, where you can pick 7 frame options, or whatever, with your K buttons, where his won't reach. Yeah, that's about it. Alright, hopefully that was at least a little bit helpful. In my mind are, like, the biggest, like, villains in this game right now, and hopefully that's at least 1 or 2 things you can do against all of them. If it doesn't apply to your character, I'm sorry. I really did my best, but some characters like Chipp are just, you know. Let me know if you want to see more of these. Maybe if you want me to do like this for like other characters in the cast, not just these. It probably will be easier, actually. So, yeah, let me know, like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for watching.